In the Design Lounge brings together experts from retail, finance, manufacturing, business, and design to cover the world of business as it stands today. We're going to discuss in this board how to pivot, how to take advantage in this topsy-turvy environment, all over your favorite cocktail. I'm your host, Brandon Gaston. Welcome to In the Design Lounge. Welcome, everyone. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
This is super exciting, super exciting. Thank you for joining us for episode 1 in the Design Lounge. Cheers to branding, sponsored by Design Within Reach and Chown Hardware. I don't know if you guys have your drinks out yet. Cheers to branding. Cheers, cheers, cheers. I'm your host, Brandon Gaston. We have an amazing panelist today talking about how do you brand yourself in the new normal. First guest, Russell Borne, North American brand design lead at Adidas. He is also the co-founder of Carnation Contemporary Artists. Russell spent the majority of his career in design and art direction for various companies, including Snow Peak and now Adidas. At Adidas, he leads a team of designers charged with bringing the brand to life in print and digital. He also co-founded and currently serves as acting board member and brand manager for Carnation Contemporary Art, a Portland-based art gallery. Russell, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Our next guest, Nathanael Chown, is the marketing manager of Chown Hardware. Nathanael is a 5th generation member of the Chown Hardware family, purveyors of luxury kitchen and bath architectural and lighting with multiple showrooms in the Pacific Northwest. To guide the company through an era of rapidly changing economic conditions and technologies, Nathanael has set their brand apart by driving a forward marketing approach centered on embracing community. You've been the marketing manager there for 15 years. I don't know when you started, but welcome, Nathanael.
Good to be here.
Yes, and last but certainly not least, Rachel Topping is the art director of 19th and Park. She is also the founder and creative director of Nappy Head Club. Rachel is an art director at the branding firm 19th and Park. With nearly a decade of experience as a marketing, advertising, graphic designer, and art director, working primarily among the entertainment industry, her background as a creative strategist and designer includes work with brands such as Combs Enterprises, Complex Media, AOL, Rock Nation, and Tamara Mellon. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Excited to chat with you guys today.
No, for sure, for sure. So, of course, we're here today to go over, how can we brand? How do we redefine our brands in this new normal? Why we're actually creating the new normal. And so on today's episode, we'll talk about image from a business standpoint. How are individuals and their companies perceived within their industries and by their desired clientele? During a pandemic rogue economy, is rebranding necessary, or are consumers comforted by familiarity? To begin, I'd love to hear what brand tactics have you noticed to be most effective since the pandemic altered our lives so predominantly? Who wants to start?
Well, I guess I can start. At 19th and Park, we work with a lot of brands, and we've been working on a lot of COVID-safe creative. So we've been having a lot of conversations with our clients as far as kind of revisiting their branding, their messaging, and how do you adjust to this COVID new normal. And what we've found is a combination of two things. I think you realistically have to address the environment that we're all in, but consumers are also suffering from what we're calling like COVID fatigue of getting kind of the same message of, these troubling times and these unprecedented times. Like there's like phrases that are now like blacklisted because we're being overwhelmed and bombarded with these same messages. So kind of finding that sweet spot in between acknowledging this new normal that's really unprecedented, but also kind of allowing your consumers to still get a little bit of that familiarity and that comfort that they're used to from your brand to kind of give them this little bit of escapism, but also still being very sensitive to how everyone's lives have changed. So that's been a lot of the exercises that we've been doing over at 19th is just really trying to help clients to see how they can communicate their brand message and update it enough that it feels current and responsible, but not overwhelmingly overbearing, at the same time.
It's almost like being optimistically real, right? Like you want to be optimistic, not too optimistic to act like nothing's going on, but at the same time, like okay, this is where we're at. This is how we're going to move forward, but let's be, optimistic about it. Nathanael, what are you seeing? What's working for you guys?
We're in a fun position because we were actually just on the tail end of a total rebrand. So we've spent the last, better part of 4 years rebranding the company, looking at kind of what the next step for our brand is. And then, the pandemic happens and all the situations going on globally, and you kind of for us, it forces us to be honest. It forced us to be very to look at our values in a fresh way, to look at how the brand was founded. We're a fifth generation family business, which I can't say that I'm necessarily proud of some of the values that we can look at in history, especially when you look at, race and different century. We were founded in 1879, and that was a different time. So I think that as a brand and as really a family, we kind of peeled it back to relook at, okay, how do we define values like honesty and integrity and value for the community, and what does that mean to us right now? And it's been encouraging because you can on one end you're gonna, without intentionally doing this, you're gonna create a little bit of division, but then it starts to force you to live up to your values and live up to what it means to be a neighbor to somebody down the street that may have a different perspective. And then when it comes to COVID and safety and the steps that we've taken internally to make sure that our clients feel safe and our employees are safe, it's been a learning process, and it's definitely forced us to say, this is our value, and you can live up to the value, or maybe we're not a good fit. And it forces us again to kind of say no to things we disagree with, and that's been encouraging for me and for my peace of mind, really. So that's where we've been at for the last 6 months.
Yeah, it's almost like you're going backwards to go forward. And I mean that in the way of going back to the foundation of what your company stands for, what your brand is about, what is the brand ethos, and how does that show up now in a 2020 and beyond environment, right? And really figuring out what you guys stand for. Russell, what are you seeing at Adidas? What are some of the things you guys are going through?
Yeah, I mean, at Adidas, I think you hit it really simply there about honesty, and I think that at Adidas we had to then start getting really honest about, like, when are we just doing a promotion for promotion's sake, and really checking that against, like, is this right? Does this feel wrong in this time? And getting really focused. And then when are things like actually like brand moments to reach out and help a community? So often we see ourselves as well as other brands around here kind of mixing that message of, like, hey, like, we support your community, and then but here's some stuff we're trying to sell, and so, like, that had been the big, like, thing where we had to really pause and stop and look at ourselves in the mirror and say, are we just trying to sell something right now? And that's not terribly wrong. we're all businesses, but let's be honest about it. And not try to conflate those two things of, like, helping a community and just trying to sell a product. And I think that honesty really then was galvanizing to our company, because we're like, okay, well, we want to make some big statements about the communities we support, and then let that mirror shine back at us and say, oh, we now see the gaps where we are as a brand living up to our expectation. And without putting a flag in the sand and saying we stand for this, we wouldn't get that feedback from our customers and from our own employees to say, well, good to know you feel this way, but here are the ways you're not living up to that. And it's like, all right, let's make some really big, quick motion that wouldn't have happened without it,
Now, where you talk about that and that kind of like gray area, right? Between, like, I'll just separate it, marketing and branding, right? We'll say marketing is selling and branding is, reputation, if you will. Did you guys kind of draw a line in the sand as far as when you put out creative or put out things where we're like, okay, this is definitely brand and this is definitely sales? Or because you said you didn't want to kind of commingle the two. Is that, how did that approach play out?
Well, I think that's been really good for us lately, because I think prior to COVID and you know, outcries for racial justice, like we would have just had those two worlds very separate and just been like, you know, sales does their things. But now, you know, we really do have this level set. We're like, hey, okay, let's check this against the brand and make sure that the promotions or the you know, sales strategies also reflect correctly to where we're trying to head as a brand. And I think that right now, you know, that looks like, you know, daily creative reviews where we're like looking at everything saying, does this meet the pillars that we stand for? And if not, then let's cut it and get focused and go back to the drawing board.
Definitely, definitely. So are there any specific businesses you've seen that's done like a really good job since COVID that you've kind of like gleaned from, or been like, okay, that's strategy, we can implement that within our company?
Being an Adidas guy, you don't want to give Nike too many props, but I think you have to. We all had to kind of applaud their really quick effort to say, let's make a stance. And they had this campaign that's like, it was social media driven, but it was like, play for the world, play at home, yeah. I think was the key message. And it was really quick and really to the point. And I think we all kind of was like, yeah, that's the right way to approach this. And so I don't know, I thought that was good. I think there's a ton of brands that did some really clever outreach and initiatives to like give back and to, you know, close appropriately. And I don't know. Yeah, I can't think of any specific ones at the moment.
Nathanael, you were cutting in. What were you gonna say? Or do you have any competing industries or competing companies that you've been like, oh, I have to tip my hat to them, honestly, right now?
I don't want to be the naysayer, but there's been, you know, the brands that I won't name them because I don't have necessarily the nicest things to say, but you know, it's the ones that act like it's just business as usual and that you don't have to change anything. And it's, you know, straight back to slicked back hair, used car salesman approach that I tend to just say, okay, that's a real easy one to identify. I don't aspire to be. I do want to be human about what's going on in our world today and listen when it's appropriate. And, you know, I'm not gonna let crazy Karen run throughout my showroom without a mask on and, you know, shame all my customers. You know, that kind of stuff is just it's not gonna fly. And I think that the brands I respect the most are the ones that are gonna take a stance and not just go back to business as usual, because it's not what we're used to, and it's not gonna be normal probably by next year. And if you're not adapting and learning from the mistakes that other people are maybe making and trying to develop a really understanding and clear strategy because of COVID, because we're all human beings and we all, you know, we're in a position where you can't just assume, for one, that the person sitting across from you believes the same things that you do. That's been a fun learning experience. I still get to work in the showroom every day, so I get to interact with customers, and the ones that show up, you know, complaining about when life's going to go back to normal, you know, that's just kind of like you make a mental check mark that maybe I'm not going to, you know, pursue your brand and sell your brand the same way, because you're really not understanding the situation that we're all dealing with. And it's not insensitive to say, we're going to make sure that you feel comfortable doing business with us. Yeah, business is down for a lot of businesses across the nation and the world. And that's a pain that we're all dealing with, but it's the important decisions that you're making right now that are going to define you for potentially the next 20 years. And if you're not really carefully considering the steps you're going to take to get there, then it's only a matter of time before you offend the wrong person, or God forbid, you know, you're the cause of somebody getting sick, or you know, God forbid any of that stuff happens. But that's part of having a value system built around people and valuing people above products and even brands. So that's where our stance is. And I can name a couple brands that I really do admire in this time. Nike would be one of them. And partially because they're not staying quiet, they're speaking their values, and that's something to be admired. And I think it's something to be considered on a human level and on a brand level.
Yeah, I think one of the opportunities right now is really being clear on your identity as a brand, right? Where you can really be clear as like, this is what I stand for, or I don't, and really define that clearly in how you move forward. Rachel, not to throw shade, but let's talk about companies that you've seen that Nate brought it up. Companies that you've seen that's done a good job, but as well as companies that maybe you've learned from because they've done something that you guys have tried to steer clear from since this happened.
That's a tough one. Well, I'll start with the positive. I'll start with
Hey, absolutely. Start with the good. Start with the good.
The things that I think have done well. Going back to this notion of honesty and transparency and really like diving into your brand's ethos, I think there have been a lot of brands that have come forward in like a level of transparency and even just being more open about their internal reorganization. And I think that's been really important to see because consumers they really care about what the brand is doing behind the scenes with their employees and like the whole 360 plan. So seeing brands like Sephora come forward and make pledges to increase the diversity internally, I think is really important for consumers as well to see kind of how you kind of walk the walk and having these brand pillars that you are living, you know, in your messaging, but also internally in your organization. So that has been really great to see. And I think the reception to that has been really positive. Gosh, I'm trying to think off the top of my head of a brand that I felt has done not so great.
And if you haven't, that's fine. I mean, that's great. I just figured either might be
no,
something like, oh, no.
They're out there. I've just kind of as we've been building creative, we've just been kind of looking through compilations of just all the really tone deaf, you know, flat messaging that's been out there. Again, that kind of slick back car salesman, and they just kind of throw the voiceover that's like, you know, we stand in solidarity with you, but here's, you know, the price of this new car that's on sale. But there's been a lot of examples of that where it's just kind of, again, this, like we have this objective, we have this sales goal to meet, but we just are going to kind of slap some messaging in here to make you feel acknowledged, but not really tying it back into the brand ethos. So we've been seeing a lot of that.
Have you guys been seeing from the marketplace a heightened level of transparency with your brand? Because I would imagine at a time like this, you guys kind of hit it on it. Like now, maybe before pre-COVID and everything else that's going on, right? You can kind of hide behind what your brand mission is, what the pillars are, et cetera. But it seems like now, or you can correct me if I'm wrong, that now like companies or the marketplace is expecting you to be transparent. Like, what do you stand for? What is it? And you really need to promote that. And that's almost been a form of your advertising. It's almost like you're marketing your brand. Is that true? And is that something that you would recommend to everyone out there? It's like, look, you need to let people know what you are and be transparent what you're about, whether it's whatever it is, let people know what you're about.
Absolutely. We are in a new age where the consumer really rules all, and being transparent and also just really kind of doing that evaluation of where you stand, your past, and even just being upfront about things that you're correcting and just kind of getting ahead of any potential backlash is it's going to really help your brand. We've been internally actually doing a lot of consultation with brands that I will not name, but I'm just really helping them to kind of.
You can't tell us.
I can't.
I'm just joking.
But really working with brands to reevaluate kind of the way that they think through even just like their messaging, past actions, because any slight mishap is going to get called out and it's going to get put on, on the forefront and highlighted through consumers being able to use their platforms to blast. So I think it's a very important time to kind of almost beat your consumers to the punch as far as just acknowledging any transgressions or just places for improvement, because I think we all appreciate vulnerability and just kind of admitting, hey, we're not perfect and here's what we're doing to get better. And I think that's been really well received from what we've seen.
Anybody else want to expand upon that before we go to our first game break? I know you guys are excited about our upcoming game break, but anyone else want to expand upon that?
The only comment I'll make on that is, like I said, we're a 140-year-old business, so there's a lot of very archaic ways of doing things in our business. So the transparency on like what you just mentioned, Rachel, has been huge for us, because as you transition your brand from, quite frankly, greasy tool salesman to elegance in design and interiors, there's going to be a lot of fallout when you do that. And on the other end, once you've kind of crested the hill and you can kind of start to see, the horizon ahead, there's still in place, a lot of very old ways of doing things, and just being honest with the belief that your clients and your vendors have in you as a brand to this point is not going to go away, but reassuring that there's steps that we're taking to ensure that we live up to our values, but also we're looking at technology, and we're looking at other areas that our industry, quite frankly, has just kind of ignored for the last 80 years. And that's exciting, but there are growing pains, and you've got to be pretty honest with not only your clients, but we've got employees that have been with us for over 40 years, and you introduce software and some of those tech things to those people, and they start to roll their eyes and freak out like they don't know what they're doing. And again, it's just being human and understanding and transparent, and forgiving of mistakes, and having a lot of grace for the transition period.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, like as I mentioned, we have a couple games, and I'm excited to get started on. Let's go to the first one. Picture phrase. Again, this is 5-minute game break in the design lounge. We're going to be playing picture phrase. So each picture combination represents a phrase. The first guest to call it the correct phrase wins. I don't know what they win. Maybe you can take a drink of your beverage. You can cheer to the winner. We can do this. Everyone that wins will cheers to the winner, to the correct answer. Hopefully you have enough. I might need to report, but we'll get started nonetheless. So here's an example. So this is the first one. What do you guys think this is saying?
Is it overboard?
You're yes. What'd you say?
Overboard?
Man overboard.
Oh, man overboard. Okay.
Man overboard. All right. So each of them are going to be an example of that. And so we'll go through them, and then whoever says gets the answer first. And this is there's no wrong answer. This is no wrong answer. This is not like another show where you can only say whatever. Keep on guessing until you get the correct answer. All right. So here's the first one.
Outdoor living.
Yes. Yes.
Cheers.
Yeah, I got the door. I missed the bathroom one, but I got the door one, baby.
Cheers. Hey, Russell. Great answer. Okay. Small sips. The next one is.
Ooh.
I don't want to say what I just thought.
Like
Accent lighting.
Yes.
accent lighting. Oh my God, that's a good one.
Wait, you know what? I'm glad. I forgot what the answer was, so I'm glad that you got it. I was like, I'm gonna know it when I hear it, but I forget what this answer is. All right, the next one.
Table lamp.
Yes. We are, 1 to 1. Cheers, Nate.
I'm way behind.
Where's all the sports references? Come on, let's get
I mean, this is in the design lounge. So this is obviously going to be interior design, lifestyle based. But maybe on the next one, we will add some sports references. Who knows? Maybe we can do like a bubble something.
Text box.
Close.
text frame.
No, I will say this is definitely interior design-esque.
Textiles.
Yes.
Oh, textiles. Good.
Good one.
Yes. Good one.
That's funny. Cheers.
That might be cheers. That might be the last one. No, we have one more.
Bar card.
Yes. That was an easy one.
Yeah, that was.
I need a bar cart right now.
To roll right up to you.
Right? Oh, and we have what?
Showerhead.
Man, are you cheating right now?
Are these tailored? Because I'm literally sitting in a showroom with all of these things in it, so I feel like I have a little bit of an advantage that's unfair.
I think it's because you're a sponsor. I think it's because you sponsored it. We're like, these are all going to be Chown and related, either showroom related. So thank you to our sponsor, Design Within Reach and Chown Hardware. And let's get back to the question. So many different ways I can take it. What I want to know is first, in what areas would you recommend rebranding be initiated within a company or by an individual? We'll start with you, Russell.
Number one is if your brand has any like really inappropriate racial references. I mean, God, there's like all these national football leagues that have been being called out for 10 plus years, and some of them are coming around to it. You know, various pancake brands out there that, you know, there's so many out there that have just, and you know, I don't want to point to, I mean, yeah, I do want to point fingers, but you know, I think it's just really about like not having.
This is a safe space. This is a safe space.
Then I'll just point all the fingers.
There
Yeah,
you go.
if you're a brand that has any of those references in your branding, your product lineup, I mean, you just have to have more. You just have to have everyone in the room, you know, that are making those decisions. I think for far too many years, most of these brands, whether big or small, have a single type of person making decisions. And so bringing in everyone to make those decisions, I think will help everyone. And so, yeah, rebranding, number one for me is like, you know, racial references that are like, yeah. So that's for me.
Yeah, you've seen so many tone deaf, like you said, Rachel alluded to earlier, marketing tactics. And I mean, we can go down a whole nother road, you know, diversity and inclusion, but we'll keep it on just the branding side.
Totally.
So yeah, so Rachel, what are you seeing? When should they rebrand in your space, in your arena? What are you seeing?
So it's actually funny that you kind of push diversity inclusion kind of outside of this scope, because my response actually was going to be radical inclusivity as part of your branding. I think now is a time for brands to really take the opportunity to rethink how they're who their audience is, how they're speaking to their audience, and what assumptions that they're making about their audience. I think we're in a time now where being innovative and being first to market with this newfound inclusivity is really going to give you a leg up. And also, I think it really seamlessly should kind of weave its way into just kind of like the brand ethos in general, but finding ways to kind of rethink how you are assigning gender roles, you know, how you are assigning just kind of like utility of products, or just even like how you identify your audience. This is a really great time to really refresh your perspective in order to really capitalize on an audience that might even be bigger than you originally thought. So.
Well, if it's not working, that's a great time to rebrand. I'll start there. And that's kind of where we found ourselves is, you know, I think we took our brand as far as we could take it without completely building it back up again from the ground up. And, you know, some of the references you made, Rachel, were at the forefront. You know, our clientele is 70% female, and we know that. And yet we had a board of all men, all white men, and the majority of the leadership was male led, and that was a change that we decided to make early on in the rebranding process, because we weren't going to make assumptions anymore on how to speak for our target audience. And thankfully we made all the right decisions, and all of a sudden things just start functioning differently, and inclusion is on the forefront of discussions now, and that's encouraging. But you know, I think the best time to rebrand is I don't know if there is a good time, but now seems like a great time for everyone. And yeah, it wasn't working the way it was, and that was the biggest glaring difference for us when we decided to do it.
Yeah, and I want to kind of reformat, like looking at COVID and coronavirus, right? Because there's so many obviously ways we can look at it negatively. What are the benefits that we're seeing? Because obviously there's a lot of things that should have been going on, and I feel like with this, it's sped up the process, right, of getting rid of antiquated ideas or antiquated processes, or just the sheer speed of doing things now. Can we touch on some of the advantages and benefits since this has occurred, that now businesses are able to be more transparent, are able to put a line in the sand and say, this is what we stand for, this is what we're about? Any one of you guys can touch upon that.
From my perspective, as somebody who deals in interiors, people have been stuck at home for 6 months and probably noticed a few things that they're willing to change. So that's been actually kind of a bright spot through the whole thing. So that's That's been an advantage. And again, I think advances in technology, how to optimize, Zoom conversations like this, location isn't as important as it used to be. And I say that from our brand new showroom, Seattle, that we just spent way too much money building. But it's there is a point where being able to touch and feel and see products differences and stuff like that is appropriate. But 80% of the consultation and the project can be done using video and being remote. So that's been a welcome lesson that we've learned, and I know that businesses everywhere are learning that where you needed a 50,000 square foot office space for some of the larger companies, that's just not necessary anymore, because we're learning that especially the younger generation, they're super comfortable working at home. They're more productive working at home. I can't say that for the older generation. Most of the time we had to have somebody like literally carry their desk home with them. That was fun. But that's been a fun lesson, because the climate of business is changing. And there's advantages that go along with it that I think at first everybody thought was going to be a disadvantage, and it's been a welcome surprise.
100%. I think we're seeing the expense of travel, and not just the expense on the bottom line as a big company, but the environmental expense. We cut all of our expense, all of our travel. We're revitalizing how we want to do showrooms for new product launches to this new virtual reality world. And we had talked as a company about our digital revolution, how we wanted to get get ourselves more in a digital sphere, and now this is catapult that timeline 5 years ahead of time. I think there's some huge advantages. Commuting, the environment, just the exhaust and everything has gone way down. Our footprint has diminished, and we're able to kind of really reset like what's the priority for those types of things. And even things like ground shipment versus air shipment, we've cut way back on that, saying we've got to do better. We've got to plan better so that we're not putting so much strain on the environment and our resources. So I think that's been this great reset of like focus and figuring out what's truly essential and limiting that as much as possible for like travel and building new things and expenses. So yeah, that has been a big advantage.
Yeah, my thoughts were very similar with Russell's. I think this transition from physical to digital is allowing a lot of opportunity for brands to cut costs, to be more nimble. And this transition into kind of like VR has been happening very slowly for about 10 or so years now. And now it's just kind of skyrocketing, and the opportunities are really limitless. So getting on like the early end of this train of people kind of being more accepting of VR experiences and being more open-minded to them and more interested in them, now we kind of have an opportunity to really work with like a lot less upfront costs and create experiences that would have taken months to build out, and now they're virtual experiences. So there's just like a new way to engage with consumers, which is really exciting.
Well, and one of the things to add upon that is like now it's accepted, right? All these different, like as you mentioned, like these virtual, whether it's hangouts or meetings or conferences, like now this is literally the new norm, and it's not that barrier that you had to overcome prior. Like they're like, okay, now I've been in my house wearing a blazer and shorts for the last 6 months. Like now I'm used to this, and I love it. I love the fact that I can just be business from the top. There needs to be like a new phrase, like business at the top and party on the bottom, something like that. But definitely, I definitely want to talk about, I feel like businesses small and large for different reasons, right? Speed, you touched on it, Rachel, the ability to cut for businesses, maybe large companies, entities, the red tape that they have to go through to elicit change or push something forward. And now it's like, look, things that were taking years, we just have to do right now. And then for small companies for different reasons, just touch upon that. I feel like a lot of businesses, they're like, okay, how do I do it? Because there's still that fear of I don't want to mess up, but yet I know I need to move a lot faster than I'm accustomed to.
Yeah, we're experiencing a lot of that with our clients, kind of taking timelines that normally would take 3 or 4 months down to a month and just producing. And I think there's going to be a little bit of fear in that transition. I think that's natural, but I think it's just kind of being willing to experiment a little bit and also just let the results speak for themselves. We're seeing really high engagement from these at-home creatives, these like COVID-safe production shoots. And I think we're almost becoming accustomed to that as a consumer as well, viewing things shot from the perspective of like a personal POV. So it's, the timelines are really condensing, and I honestly don't see them going back to their original way, because now we've cut out travel, we've cut out so many costs, and we're able to produce things much quicker. And I think moving forward, we're going to be in a place where we're looking to kind of mimic this expedited timeline, which allows us to be a little bit more just like nimble and reactive, and just kind of think quicker, and just be more on top of what's happening.
Definitely. I think also it's like, it's removed this shield, if you will, this buffer that all businesses have had, right? It's become, like I said, we're seeing whether these hangouts where the kid is in the background walking across and the dog starts barking, oh, we have a fire, a fireman truck in the background, like that. That's just been, people have been a lot more, accommodating, I feel like, and it's just removed this level of buffer that we used to have, where it's like, we're now getting the real authentic selves. So we have another game. This is the second one. This is word mix up. Nathanael definitely, I would say, won the first one, but we all win if we cheers after every answer. So we're all winners. But let me definitely go to the second one. Let me pull it up. So this is our second 5-minute game break in the Design Lounge, great magazine. And I'll give an example. So word mix up. A word will be shown with all of the letters out of order. The first guest to unscramble the letters and call it the correct word wins. And I mentioned we're all winners because we're all toasting, but the official winner, let's go. So, and all the words in this round represent product categories offered by our sponsor, Chown Hardware. Thank you, Chown.
I'm just gonna stay quiet because
I was literally just thinking, you aren't allowed to answer. You can't answer any questions. This is strictly between, and I would actually, I like to win, so I would add myself in there, but I know some of the answers, so I won't. So this is Russell and Rachel.
Okay.
This is what you do. So word mix up.
Kitchen?
Yes. Cheers.
Nice. Cheers.
I'm in a kitchen right now.
You're in all the answers. Well, did you plan this?
Nope. I first time I've seen it.
Okay. So you said no. All right.
Rub-a-dub-dub.
Bath?
I can see he wants to say it. Yes, bath. Cheers again.
Cheers again.
Next question, next word mix up.
Oh, man.
This is a good one. I will say you'll see it in the kitchen.
Cabinet.
It can be, yeah. You are on it.
I am not. This is not my game, I guess. Shoot.
This is not,
That was a tough one.
Yeah, that was tough.
Took me a second.
That one was good. That one was good for sure.
Oh, nightlight. No.
Close.
Super close.
Something we all want right now that we're on Zoom meetings.
Pretty sure it was in the instructions.
It was. We want to look good. We want to make sure if we look good, we have to have the correct
lighting.
Yeah.
Yes.
It threw me off.
What'd you say?
It was just the way the letters were in there just threw me off.
Yeah, no, it is. Let me see how many more we have. Oh, goodness.
I don't even know what this is.
I don't even know what this is.
Oh, I know what this is. It's the other category.
Yeah.
Like other, quote unquote, other.
I'm literally
You know,
like,
you know all about this, Brandon. You're in the business.
oh, I do know what this is now.
Oh no. Okay, just say it.
I just say it. Just
Well,
say it.
so me coming from a fashion background, fashion, what makes or breaks an outfit?
Accessories.
Yes.
Yes. It took me a second. It took me a second.
That was tough. There's a lot.
That
of
one was, I think
Oh,
it's
cheers.
progressively getting harder. It's progressively getting harder for sure. Enjoy all of these categories and more at chown.com. Chown, thank you for being a sponsor. Let's get back to the final questions. So I want all you guys to dive into this. During a pandemic and rogue economy, is rebranding necessary, or are consumers comforted by the familiar?
Yes.
Yes to what?
Great.
D, all of the above.
Obviously, familiar for everyone is it's what's comfortable, and everybody's uncomfortable right now, whether their stress levels high or not, and that's what we've all been missing, right? Is the familiar faces, the being able to network and connect with, quite frankly, people that we care about and love and miss, and so the familiarity piece is, I think, the biggest. It's the biggest suffering point in this whole pandemic, being distance, and we talk about virtual. It's not the same. Virtual happy hours is not the same as throwing darts at a dartboard or shooting pool with your buddies, and that's something that is tough to swallow. But from that perspective, how you brand yourself and rebrand and approach a rebrand, which is kind of necessary, it's required right now. The piece I think that's going to be the most effective is revisiting those familiar areas, and being honest with what is true about your brand, because when you can't walk to the store and buy a pair of Adidas Superstars, what brought you to the decision to buy that pair of shoes? There's a deciding factor there. In some cases it's going to be familiarity, and in other cases it's going to be innovation, and you kind of pick your brand narrative there. But I think that the brands that I tend to respect in the last 6 months are the ones that are honest and don't ignore there's a situation going on, and have a very heartfelt, we're with you kind of brand message. So it's important for both, I think.
I will say, for myself, I'm a Stan Smith fan because the silhouette's just classic. It goes with everything. Dress it up or dress it down. This is not a plug, by the way, but just saying. If I'm picking between the two, I'm going with the Stan.
I didn't pay either of you to say these.
I will text you my Venmo later on. I'm looking at this to the branding.
Thanks for your shoe size. Yeah.
Exactly. So Russell, same question to you. Is it the time to rebrand, and then familiarity? What role does that play?
And I think I think it is, a little bit of what Nathan's saying is like you've got to stick with what's familiar and hold true to those tenets of your brand, as long as there's something that you can really stand behind. I think where you need to rebrand in our current climate is when your industry is like majorly affected. Like, if you are Uber and you're not really driving people to and fro anymore, you got to rebrand and start delivering groceries, or start doing something that you can do in this climate. And so, I think that people need to be careful not to rebrand just to hide where they had been before and try to be a new company. You're not trying to whitewash the past. You're pivoting to make sure that your industry, or the industry that your company is in, is viable still. And you have to be flexible and be willing to say, okay, I can't do this part of my business anymore, but I can do this. So let's reemphasize that and make a pivot as a brand. But yeah, I think I'd be careful to say that like this is a time to just do a complete overhaul of your brand, if unless there isn't a company or isn't an industry for you today.
Yeah, no, it's almost like I was saying, like, now we're pivoting the pivot, right? We're already, you know, maybe making adjustments, and now we're like, oh, that's in the whole 180. We got to do something else because of coronavirus. I will also say, though, within that, you know, essentially when you think of your brand, that is the essence of who the company is, right? Nate talked about it earlier. We're getting to the foundation of who we are as an entity. And I don't want to jump ahead. I do want you to answer this question too, Rachel, but I would like to come back to it. Innovation within the rebrand, right? Maybe the industry you're in, you were accustomed to, is no longer viable. But how do you change? And how do people, if they are in fact rebranding, and Rachel, you can start at this point, how do you rebrand and not just change for the sake of changing, but looking forward to 2021 and 22 and like, okay, we're still going to innovate within the rebrand and make sure that we're not just doing something just for coronavirus, we're doing something for our entity, our business as we move forward to 2021 and beyond.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it on its head. It's really just identifying where the market is going, because this isn't like a temporary change in behavior. This is a long-term reshifting of the way that we behave and interact with brands and just like in the world right now. So kind of using this as an opportunity to rebrand for the future versus kind of just reacting to COVID currently. But yeah, I share the same sentiments as Nathanael and Russell. It's a balance between sticking to your core ethos as a brand and then finding opportunities to refine from there. I think your consumer is going to appreciate you not completely overhauling because they've grown to love you because they like who you are. So while there's always opportunity for growth, it's this really delicate balance between evolving but also staying true to what made you who you are. I just wanted to share a little anecdote. I can't mention the brand, but we had a brand come to us and said, you know, we realized that our whole brand ethos is racist and we want to change it. And we kind of had to come back to them and say, you know, this is your entire following is based on this that you built. So you've got to try to find the good in this brand and seeing beyond like, you know, the statements and like the phrases that might be problematic and need to change and find the core of what makes this brand good, because there's a ton of people who love it. And you have to kind of transition your audience into that evolution. You can't just kind of like say, we're scrapping everything, here's the new brand, because that's no longer the same brand. You've got to kind of like use the core of what makes you who you are and then evolve it in thinking for the future. So.
Well, I think that's a perfect way. That's like the drop the mic moment. You know what I mean? We're, you know, core of who you are, branding for the future, the best of who you are, innovating going forward. I think you guys answered all the questions. So thank you guys again. Episode 1 of In the Design Lounge. Sponsors, Design Within Reach, Chown Hardware. Of course, you guys. Rachel, thank you for blessing us. Nathanael, thank you for blessing us.
Thank you.
Russell, thank you for blessing us. Tune in next Friday, October 2nd at 6 p.m. Pacific time as we hear episode 2 of In the Design Lounge 2020. Raise your glass to leadership. I will raise my glass one more time. I have a little bit left. Cheers to branding in the new normal.
Good to meet y'all.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great talking to you guys.
All right.
And cut.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you all. It was super fun to meet you guys virtually.
It was.
You know, if we, you know, maybe 2021, 2022, we'll do a In the Design Lounge in person, and then there you go.